This is an exciting area for bottle hunting. Nestled between two of Florida's oldest and most historically significant towns, St. Augustine and Bernardino Beach. Hotspots where to look: old dumps, old homesteads, creek beds, river beds, boat accesses, beach combing. How to tell if an old bottle is truly antique. First up is the seam line. Before about 1900, bottles were often made in molds, and you'd see a seam line running up the sides that usually stopped somewhere on the neck or shoulder, not going all the way up to the lip. If the seam goes all the way over the top of the lip, you're likely looking at something that was made in the early 1900s when automatic bottle machines took over. Next, the base of the bottle. Before around 1860 to 1870, many bottles were made using a blowpipe and then finished by hand. This often led to a rough, uneven, or pommel scar on the very bottom where the blowpipe was attached. If it's super smooth and flat, it's probably a more modern machine-made bottle. Then there's the lip. Early bottles had a more crudely fashioned lip, sometimes uneven with tool marks because they were applied by hand. As time went on, the finishing became much more precise and uniform. And finally, the color and clarity of the glass itself. Earlier glass often had imperfections like bubbles and swirls, or a slightly wavy texture, because the glass making process wasn't as refined. You might also notice interesting color variations due to the impurities in the glass. Later mass-produced bottles are generally much clearer and more uniform. The color can tell you a lot about when and how a bottle was made, and even what it might have contained. You'll see a lot of antique bottles with a few common colors: aqua or light green, blue-green, amber brown, olive green, dark green, often called black glass, clear and colorless, sun purple, or amethyst and cobalt blue. So when you're admiring those antique bottles, remember that the colors aren't just pretty. They're little historical clues, whispering tales of the past, and the fascinating chemistry of old-school glassmaking. When you're digging up these old medicinal bottles, you're not just finding glass, you're uncovering a fascinating and sometimes shocking chapter in medical history. Before modern regulations like the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906 was passed, medicine was a wild west of snake oil remedies. Patent medicines were largely unregulated. The active ingredients were often things that simply made you feel better, or at least numb, rather than actually curing anything. Common ingredients, often in surprisingly high concentrations, included alcohol, opium, cocaine, mercury, and lead, botanicals and herbs, and quinine. Essentially, these medicines often provided a temporary narcotic effect that masked the symptoms, or a laxative effect that made people feel like their system was being cleansed. The lack of regulation meant manufacturers could make outlandish claims and include potent, addictive substances without disclosure. Snake oil remedies, antique bottles, history and art in a perfect package.